Best version of me is it's a quest, but an unachievable destination. It wouldn't matter if I had 100 Olympians, I want another 100. And when I have 200, I'm gonna want 3. Because it's a never-ending quest for perfection, which is not, perfection is not obtainable.
Welcome to the Best Version of Me show. We have a great and exciting one for you today. I'm Daniel Hernandez, host, along with my co-host, Edgar Miranda. Boy, do we got a treat for you today. Edgar, go ahead and introduce us to our guest today.
Oh man, the person that we're gonna bring up literally needs no introduction in the fitness world. But we want everybody that we know to get to know this person that we call the human crane, or at least that's what they used to call him, the human crane. World's strongest man. This is the trainer of trainers, the coach of coaches. He's trained over 100 Olympians. And let me just tell you, 100 Olympians, that's not quite easy to do. Arnold Schwarzenegger won 7 Olympians. And not only that, he's training thousands of people across the world, from China to Brazil. He's gonna tell you more about all of that. In addition to that, man, the guy has a heart of gold. He's a family of 5. He's a 4th brother, second to the oldest. He's a father, a great son, and I like to say he's an excellent friend. I've had the privilege to call him a close friend of mine, and he's actually my mentor and coach as well. Without further ado, let's get to know my friend, the human crane, Ryan Bentson, Team Zero Gravity.
All right, Ryan,
What's up,
thank
guys?
you for being on the show.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
that.
me.
And so go ahead and tell us the story about the human crane.
So, yeah, that was a long time ago. So I started off, I've been bodybuilding a long time, but my claim to fame in bodybuilding was always my strength. I was known for being the strongest bodybuilder. And there was no real way to measure that back in the day, right? There was just like, everybody said, no, you gotta see this guy, he's strong as can be, So I entered into a competition. They had a bicep curling competition at the Olympia, and it was called the Battle of the Biceps. And I think I was like 19 years old, and I entered in there with all these guys that were these veterans that had been powerlifters and stuff.
19 years old.
Yeah, and they were all veterans of the game, and I knew I was stronger than these guys, and I was the strongest guy in Bulldog Gym in Glendora, which was, pretty hardcore gym. And we had a lot of the world strongmen in there, Mark Phillips, these guys that were like competing in the world strongman. So I knew I could hang, and so I jumped into the competition. I ended up winning that competition, and did some interviews with the Weeder publications and stuff at that time, which started launching me in my bodybuilding career. So from that point, they were like, I did a photo shoot with a photographer named Irvin Gilb, who was a big photographer, and they shot me for the cover of Muscle and Fitness. And they did an article about me being this, once in a lifetime kind of an unhumanly strength. And they called the article the human crane.
Oh, okay, so that was a name given to you.
Boom, it stuck. From that point, everybody was like, oh, human crane. I mean, that was a long time ago and a lot of injuries. But yeah, that was the young days. It was fun.
So that was about 19 years old.
Yeah, that's when I was about 19 years old. I was at my first Olympia. And I went to the Mr. Olympia, and I was there, and I didn't know I was going to enter. I was just there in the expo, and I saw it, and they were taking open, like, walk-in signups. And some of the guys that I idolized, that I watched, were in this, and I was like, this will be fun. I honestly, I always knew I was strong, but I didn't know how strong, because I trained at this gym, and I grew up training with the guys that were some of the strongest men in the world. And guys like that legitimately competed in the world strongmen or were the world-class powerlifters. And I was the strongest guy in that gym. And I was able to lift with the best of the best, but I thought it was kind of normal. I didn't know until I went to like an LA Fitness or something for the first time that people didn't lift like that. And it was just a gift, it's always been a gift. Since a young age, I think that's just, it's what always came easy to me was lifting heavy.
So let's kind of go back to the young age. Tell us a little bit about Ryan growing up. What city did you grow up in, your family?
Man, I grew up in Covina. I was born and raised in Covina. My parents been married now for 50 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's awesome. My parents are great. I bought the house directly across the street from my parents. I live in the house directly across the street from the house that I grew up in. All my brothers, we all live in the same neighborhood. So we grew up, my mom and dad had 7 boys. We had 2 brothers pass through the years. And then there's 5 of us living, right? 5 brothers. All of them have gone on to be really good men, you know, and successful in whatever career they've chosen. And that's an attribute to my parents, right? They raised us strict, they raised us right, and they raised us, most importantly, they raised us in the church, you know? So for me, my parents, my mother runs the largest women's Bible study. She was a children's leader for 40 years with BSF.
Wow.
My father donates his time at the church.
What church is this?
My parents attend Christ First in Covina.
Okay.
But my mother used to run a program called BSF, a Bible Study Fellowship. It's a huge women's Bible study. It's international now. And she was a big part of that from the beginning of that. So being raised in the church and having a family that kept us grounded and close to God my whole life, you know, I think that's a lot of the success that I've seen throughout the years, is just working hard and having a lot of faith.
So as you're growing up, were you involved as well? Was there a little bit of age of rebellion? How was that within
We
the
all
whole
have an
household?
age of rebellion, you know. As a young kid, we grew up. It was, you know, when you got 5 boys in one house, you know, we grew up, you know, we were tough, but we never fought with each other. We just fought other people together.
That's right. You mess with one, you mess with all?
Yeah, you mess with all of us, that's for sure. So we're all only a couple years apart, and so it was just, we grew up a solid family of real boys. We were outside all day playing hard and always into sports, you know, and all of us played sports, whatever it was. I grew up wrestling and playing baseball. My older brother Brock grew up running. He was a track and cross country star. My brother Flint was a great baseball player. We all played our sports. Heath and Tyler, they were wrestlers, you know, so I had the privilege of later then coaching them in wrestling when they got to high school. You know, so my brothers are my best friends still to this day. I see my family every day.
That's awesome.
And we hang out almost every day, you know.
So how about the bodybuilding? How did that come into play? When did you start lifting weights, working out, realizing the strength?
I started training at such a young age because my dad in the garage, we had this Marcy body bar machine that was in the gym that was like the home gym. And I had an interest in lifting at a really young age. I think I had my first hernia surgery from lifting at 9 years old. Wow. Because I just was into it. When everybody wanted to go play video games, I said, well, yeah, let's work out first, you know. So all my neighborhood friends that I grew up with, which all went on to be extremely successful, they all know me as a kid that always wanted to work out. Like, we'd work out first and before we would do anything else. And so I convinced my parents to buy, me and my older brother, we started lifting right around the same time. My brother Brock always is an inspiration because my brother, he overachiever for sure, just super educated guy, works super hard at everything he does, and he's successful at everything he does because he just out-hustle anybody. So Brock took a real interest in bodybuilding, and right around the same time, we took that same interest. So we used to lift together in the garage. And then we convinced my dad to buy us a Olympic bench press set, you know. And my dad had told me, when you outgrow this, and there was a 315-pound bench press there, when you outgrow this, I'll get you a gym membership. And so there was a newspaper article about Bulldog Gym. It was like this bodybuilding gym. And I had done my first book report. The first book that I ever really read, I did a book report in like first grade, was Arnold Schwarzenegger Bodybuilding Encyclopedia.
That's right, yeah.
I was into bodybuilding from that age. I just loved Arnold. I loved, you know, all the action stars, the superheroes. I knew that's what I wanted to look like. I didn't know there was anything competitions. I didn't know about competitions. I just knew that I wanted to be big and muscular like these guys were. And so it was always, the interest was always there. Me and my brothers, we started working out. And then one day, my dad comes to the newspaper article about Bulldog Gym, that all these pro bodybuilders had trained this gym, and it's right here in Glendora, one city over. And he said, one day, you know, maybe I'll take you guys there. And he said, but you gotta, when you outgrow this, I'll take you there.
How old were you at this time?
I think I was like 13 or 14 years old, and my dad was like, he thought this was this out there, you know, like, when you're done, let's
waving the carrot.
every day. And I went in that garage, and then I told him, I said, Dad, I can bench 315. I could do all of it. And he was like, well, you're gonna get hurt, don't even try it. And so I was like, literally, I was doing it every day in the garage. And so one day I convinced him to come out and watch me, and I did. I took it off. Boom,
How many plates on each side?
345s on each side, right? So that's 315-pound bench press. I think I was 13 years old, and I did it. And I said, can I go to Bulldog? And my dad took me up to Bulldog.
He had to sign a
and
waiver.
Signed a waiver for us to go work out there. I think he waited in the parking lot while we were working out. And the owner of the gym, Tim Schneider, was a IFBB pro bodybuilder. And there was a lot of pros in that gym, guys like Sean Ray and guys kind of trained there regularly. Mark Anthony Christensen was co-owner, and he was a very high-level, national-level bodybuilder. And so I took to it right away, and when I was in there lifting, all I really knew how to do was bench press. So I was in the gym, and I put three plates on. And I start doing it, and they come over, and the owner's like, "Kid, how old are you?" And I said, 13. And he goes, "You could do this?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do it right now." You know? So I did it.
I can't even do that now.
I thought I was in trouble because he was like, "Where's your dad?" And I was like, "He's in the parking lot." And I thought I was in trouble. And he was like, "Your son needs to come train. He's got a gift." Right?
Wow.
So from that point on, I never even paid a gym membership. It was like they said, "Hey, this is your home. You come train here." They took me under their wing, and I got to learn under the tutelage of some of the best bodybuilders of several generations. Guys like Gary Walker, who was just around from the Steve Reeves era, and amazing bodybuilders like that, the different generations that I soaked it up. Guys like Jack Garbarino I looked up to, who was a good national level bodybuilder, and there was these pros, national, new guys, and I was just a young kid that was hungry and I wanted to learn. And so I just soaked it all up. I knew what I wanted to do from that age, and I just kept doing it.
And was it important to have that mentorship, those people that were there to be able to invest in your life and help your gift grow?
I wouldn't trade those times for anything because, you know, I'm still to this day learning, right? I've been coaching for over 20 years. You're never done learning.
That's right.
I learn every time I work with a new athlete. But the fundamentals that I learned back then, I don't use all of them now. Some of the stuff I learned was old school technology that we now have gotten better at. But I learned from every single one of those things, whether it was the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it.
Correct.
And the guys that were just investing into me at that young age in that gym, I mean, I soaked it up, and honestly, that's what kickstarted all of it. That's what even gave me the base of the knowledge for me to even learn to what was next, you know? And it was an awesome opportunity. You know, it's a community of people all like-minded, and we all have the same common interests, right? And so you would learn. You look at a guy at the gym and be like, "Damn, this guy's got great legs. Well, I'm just going to watch what he does for legs." And then, you know, it's a community. So they would say, "Well, come train legs with me." And I'm in there like, "Really? I get to train legs with you?" This guy's, you know, a guy like Ollie Mulla, who was a Mr. Universe. So these guys, they all were in the gym. And I got to learn little bits and pieces from all these guys that were just veterans of the sport. And had I not been in that circumstance, I don't think I would be where I'm at, you know, because I got years and years of information that it took these guys trial by error to learn and condensed it into, here's the way to do it, you know, and I didn't have to make a lot of those mistakes. And I mean, that knowledge is just, it's unbeatable. You can't replace that, you know.
So you had mentorship, you had community, right? You had a location where everybody was like-minded, right? Was some of those building blocks to your later on in your career or getting into the...
Everything that I learned to that day, I still apply now. And my logo and my motto is iron sharpens iron. 2 reasons, right? Biblical side to it. But the other part to that logo is that iron sharpens iron means that every person on this team, whether they're brand new or they're a veteran, are serving a purpose to somebody in the team, right? So the way that I set this up is it's a very unique situation the way I train my athletes. I train my athletes in a group. And a lot of people say, "Oh, group training?" I said, "No, it's not the group training you think. Come try it," right? They'll do it once and they go,
They're thinking group classes like LA Fitness or 24-hour fitness.
You know, in any given day, I could have 9, 10, 15 IFBB pros or Olympians that are in this gym training together. Now, when you have 9 guys that are all qualified for the Mr. Olympia, which is the Mr. Olympia is the pinnacle of bodybuilding. That is the title.
That's the World Cup of bodybuilding.
That is the biggest title you could ever have in bodybuilding. And when you have, out of the top 30 men in the world, you have 9 of them in this gym training together. If one guy is going a little heavier than the next guy picks up a little heavier weight. It gets competition. But it's healthy competition amongst their team. They're supporting each other. they're motivating each other, but at the same time, they all want to beat each other, right? So that atmosphere it just explodes, right? Because all I have to do is set the table and then let them run with it. Because these guys then, once they start, it's just, these are all alphas. These are all alphas. They're all IFBB pro bodybuilders, and they want to be the best. And they all believe they
women
can.
and men.
Women and men.
Yes.
And so when you have this energy in the gym that's unbeatable, and it's the energy that used to be at the gym that I grew up with. And bodybuilding has never been known as being a team sport. I turned it into a team sport, right? So it is a team. This is honestly, legitimately a bodybuilding team. And when we win, the whole team wins, and one of our athletes does. And there's gonna be many shows that I have an athlete that's in first and an athlete that's in fifth, right? And they come back to this gym, they're still helping each other for the next show. And it might reverse, but that's the beauty in the system that I set up, is that these guys are pushing each other, motivating each other, and it's a community. Correct. The accountability, the motivation, it's all there. If you really do this sport, bodybuilding is one of these sports that's a very recluse sport, right? Typically. It's isolating for most people.
Why is that?
The diet is so restrictive that I can't go eat out. I can't go to dinner with the family. I can't go do this. My friends want to go drinking. I can't drink. I can't. So it takes away a lot of social aspects for a lot of people.
A lot of discipline.
It takes a lot of discipline. And
The mindset, right, to have been so isolated in certain communities, to say no to.
it's hard, right? It is hard when you're in that situation for a lot of people. So this sport has been a sport that typically would take people away. But if you're surrounded by other people that are in the same mindset, that have the same goal, you now have a supportive community, because it's very hard to get a lot of support from a lot of friends and family to push yourself to that level if they don't understand why you're doing what you're doing. But also with my athletes, one of the things that I teach mostly is I tell them, don't let it impact your social life, though, right? I tell everybody, you understand that when it's your vision, it's your journey, it's your sacrifice that you're making. Don't make it everybody else's problem, and nobody will pay attention, right? So I grew up having, I had my daughter when I was young, and that was my real drive. I have a daughter now. My daughter Mackenzie's 23 years old. I'm 42. So you can do the math. I had my daughter when I was 19. And I raised my daughter majority of her life by herself. I've had full custody of her since she was a little girl. And me and my daughter are like this. And we grew up basically, I was a single dad, and I was raising her through the years of competing, through building
still
the
lives with
gym.
you?
She moved out this last year for the first time, which was hard. She's on her own now, so she's 23. She has some roommates, and they're doing really well. They're super motivated. She's got a great job.
Some of her girlfriends train with you.
Yeah, they train.
And they
here.
actually just won a competition.
Yeah, one of her girlfriends that they've been friends since first grade. I got them in here now competing. It's kind of surreal, right? It's just come full circle. Now I got these girls that used to come over for sleepover days, and now they're competing.
Wow.
But that drive started from there too, right? I had my daughter at such a young age. I had to grow up fast. It was like, hey, things get real. I moved out at 19 years old, or at 18 years old. Had my daughter right after I turned 19, and it was full blown, like, I'm a dad and I gotta get to work. So this was something that was always a passion of mine as a hobby, but I knew it was gonna be my career. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people. They don't have direction. I think I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I was going to do. And through all the years, I had a lot of people ask me, when are you gonna get a real job? You got to get a real job. And I said, this is what I do.
So at that time, were you making any kind of income from working out, or how were you paying the bills?
So I grew up competing, right? I had a good bodybuilding career. And bodybuilding was a passion of mine, but I actually found a lot more gratifying coaching than competing, due to the aspect of it being so recluse of a sport, right? That it's, when you compete, you go to a show, you win a show, to your friends and your family, it doesn't matter. I won the Mr. California, right? So after you win the Mr. California, you're like, "Psh, I'm Mr. California." To your family and your close friends, you're Ryan, right? And I'm gonna eat egg whites off of the same paper plate that I did yesterday in the morning, right? And so it's not, to those people, nothing changed. And so you have to get into the mindset that you're doing this for you, right? This is something you have to have that drive. And I knew what I wanted to do. It wasn't for any other reason. But when you go to Sunday dinner with the family, you're just Ryan still, right? They don't care if you're Mr. whatever.
Did you appreciate that aspect of it, where being around a community of working out and bodybuilders and professional athletes, and then coming home and kind of disconnecting from that, or? Absolutely,
it keeps you grounded. Right? It keeps you grounded, and it keeps life realistic. I think a lot of people, I tell her, becoming a pro bodybuilder is either going to be the worst day or the best day of your life. And they said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, it depends on what you were planning on getting out of it. If you think that the day you turn pro, you win the Mr. USA and you get your pro card in your hand, if you think the next day that your phone's going to blow up and people want to throw money at you, you're wrong. And if that's what you were doing it for, then you did it for the wrong reasons. If you did it because you want to say, I'm a pro athlete, I now want to be, this is my goal, is to be a pro athlete, and now I'm a pro, it's the best day of your life. You succeeded at one of your largest goals, right? And then, but the only thing that really changes the next day is your Instagram handle. You know, it'll go from Joe Blow to Joe Blow IFBB Pro, you know? But
back then too, was there even, social media wasn't really as big as it was.
So when I was competing, there was no social media. Right? I don't even think we had internet yet. When I was competing, there was no internet. That was before dial-up, right? So when I was competing, I got VHS tapes, I mean, somewhere if you want to watch those, right? Like VHS tapes of my bodybuilding shows and Polaroids, you know? So we had, back then it was a big deal, and that's really when I first knew that I was in the right spot. Was there was no social media, and I actually like bodybuilding better prior to social media. Social media has now opened it up to people can pretend or fake it till they make it, so to speak, in an industry. Back then you couldn't fake anything. Like, you either won a competition and you were relevant, or you didn't. And you were completely irrelevant, right? And to know who was relevant, you had to win, because if you were winning, then you got in the magazine. And I remember I'd wait 3 months for a magazine to come out to see who won the last competition. That's the only way we knew who was who, right? Because this guy was in a magazine article, and so if you got in a magazine, Muscle Mag or Flex or Muscle and Fitness, if you were in Ironman, you were in one of these magazines back in the day, you were a big deal, right? Because they were very particular who got in the magazine. So I think at 19 I got in my first magazine, and that was like, man, my whole family bought every copy they could find, you know, went to every 7-Eleven there was, and you have these magazines back, you know, that's when you know you were like somebody, right? And so it was such a big deal. I remember being so excited the first time I got in a magazine, and then I got in the second one, and the third one, and every time you get in the magazine, it was just like the first time, right? Just so excited, like, because I grew up idolizing, looking in these magazines, idolizing the Ronnie Colemans and the Dorian Yates and the Arnolds and these guys. And so to actually see yourself in the magazine, you're like, man, I made it. But
was that validation for you?
It was a lot of validation for me. I was in a dark spot of my life. You know, I was going through some hard times with trying to be a single dad at 19 years old. And fighting for custody and just some really nasty times back then, you know. And I was 19 years old and broke, you know. And I was still bodybuilding. I was working 2 full-time jobs aside from it, right? So I was working, I worked for Disney. I was working in the police department at one point. I was working for...
You were a security guard?
Yeah, I mean, I was a bouncer for 15 years, right? I've done everything there was to do. I was just there to hustle, you know. But everything that I was doing was to support the ultimate goal, what I knew I wanted to do long term. All those things were jobs, but this was my career. And I know, even though the career wasn't making the money yet, I knew that was going to be my career.
I knew it was coming.
These were just jobs to support my career.
That's powerful, what you just said. Those were jobs to support your career.
Yeah, that was it.
And a lot of the people you train, the ones that have gone to Olympia, how's their journey? Like, what advice would you give them?
Well, you know, the hard part is this, that you know how many athletes that I have coached athletes, people, celebrities, different, I've coached every aspect of the fitness industry. And I've coached so many people who actually have accomplished more on a competitive stage than I did as a coach, than I did even as a bodybuilder, right? That I've seen that have done nothing with it, right? I have guys that have had 10 times the titles that I had, and were far superior of a competitor, and they did nothing. They did nothing with it.
Was that something that maybe you think that they didn't know what to do with it, they didn't know how to do it, they didn't have the drive, or they didn't know how to utilize that platform? What do you think?
I'll tell you what it comes down to is it's having that vision and then understanding that no matter what industry you're in. I have some of my clients that have been the most wealthy clients that I've ever trained that didn't even have a high school diploma. They started off digging holes for spas, then they did pools, and now they build shopping centers. Now they own shopping centers, right? It's about sticking to what you know you want to do and doing it until you're good, right? And it's not about what you do, it's just how long and how hard you've been working at that. So with bodybuilding, I knew it's what I wanted to do, and I did it. It took me 10 years to be an overnight success, right? There was 10 years that I made no money. 10 years that I was working other jobs just to keep the lights on at the gym, but nobody knows those years. They only know when you actually arrived, right? And the same thing as a bodybuilder. If you have what it takes, because nobody knew Ronnie Coleman's name when he was a pro before he was Mr. Olympia. And they don't talk about the journey. They only know the 8 years that he was the reigning Mr. Olympia. And they look and say, that guy's so lucky, man, in genetics. They don't go, what about the years that he had a not place next to his name, right? Nobody knew it. He was working in silence then, right? But working just as hard, even harder, because it's harder when you don't have all the accolades, right? So if these guys would apply the same approach that they had to their personal experience of bodybuilding into the other areas of their life, they could have the same amount of success, because it requires an extreme amount of discipline to follow that diet, to work that hard every day, your cardio for 2 hours a day. It's extreme amount of focus and dedication to be able to be successful in competing. And only a small percentage, 2% of national level bodybuilders will ever make it into the pros. And only 1% of them are ever going to go to the Olympia. You got a better chance of making it as a pro baseball player and going to the all-star team than you do to go to the Olympia in our sport.
And you've trained over 100.
I've trained well over 100
easily
athletes for the Olympia.
in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to that place you talked about, being in that dark place. I know that the gym was a place to follow your passion, but was that also therapeutic emotionally, mentally, during that time that you were in?
100%. It saved my life. The gym saved my life for many reasons. Because I was in a spot in my life at one point where I had no control over the things that were happening to me, right? I didn't have control over my finances. I had somebody who was messing with my credit scores and stealing and buying cars in my name and doing things that made my life almost impossible to be successful, right?
You also had a lot of adversity with your health.
And my health was an issue. I've gone through a lot of health issues throughout my years, and injuries and things, and constant setbacks, right? But the thing that I loved about bodybuilding, and before bodybuilding, I was a very competitive wrestler. I wrestled my whole life. And both those sports, what they have in common is they're not team sports, in the fact that ultimately you are 100% in control of how good you are, right? So with the bodybuilding, for me, was what saved me, because I had no control over anything else in my life. I couldn't control whether or not, you were ruining my finances, or the police were being called, and crazy things that I was going through in my life. And you're going, I'm not even a part of this. How am I dealing with all this stuff? But bodybuilding was the one thing that when I go to the gym,
You're in control.
I'm in control. You can't take that from me. I put my headphones on, I work out hard, that's my time. I am in control of whether or not I'm going to be successful or not, right? So in this world, there's so many things that you have no control over. If you give up the things in life you do have control over, you got nothing, right? And so for me...
That's powerful. Repeat that again, Ryan?
Yeah, so if you give up the things in life that you have control over, then you have nothing, right? Because there's life is going to deal you whatever hand it deals you, right? And God's going to challenge you with whatever challenges he wants to put in your way. And there's certain things, though, in life that you could say, but you know what? I got 2 arms, I got 2 legs, and I'm breathing today, and I can work, right? And so as long as you have that mentality, and that's all I did. Even when things weren't going well, I just put my head down and I just got to work. And so you think about, when you were talking about the magazines and things, those were the things that kept me motivated, right? Because I had all my trophies destroyed and smashed, but then I'd get on the cover of another magazine, right? Or I'd get another article in the magazine, and it was like this validation of like, I'm going the right way, I'm going the right way. And I would be broke and money was gone, but then boom, I'd win another show and I had another title. And it was just this, that was the thing for my life, that it was like, you're taking all this away, but I'm still doing it. And then at a young age, I decided, I opened my first gym. I opened up Zero Gravity. My daughter was only a couple years old, and I'd been working at other gyms, training clients, and it kind of took off, right? I had clients that wanted to work with me, and I was getting in newspaper articles and in magazines, so the hype started. But there was no coaching bodybuilding back then. I was just a personal trainer, training everybody to be in the best shape they could. And I had a huge clientele that was just growing, and things were growing.
And you were training a high level celebrities too.
Yeah, I did a lot of celebrity training, a lot of A, B, and C listers. I've had them all.
They would call you. You had your phone ringing.
Yeah, my phone was ringing, and I was getting hit up to train different people for whatever upcoming roles they had in different, because everybody wants to look like a bodybuilder. Who better to have get them there than somebody who's a bodybuilder? So I really started studying my craft. And I started training all different walks of life. I got one of my friends, Matt Rogers, to lose a lot of weight when he was a finalist on American Idol. So then people were like, oh, wow, how do you lose all this weight? And then he gave me a shout out, I think, on like Fox 11 News about how he got in shape. So next thing you know, boom, 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 I'm starting to get a bunch of people. And
was that always a plan to be a coach? Or how did that transition from going to competing to now training competitors?
I think I started finding that I got more satisfaction out of when one of my people were successful in a show than I did, right? Because
that's a true coach's heart right there.
Right? You would leave a show and then you're like, nothing's different, right? Like, but when the athlete wins the show, I feel it, they feel it. There's this sense of like appreciation for each other, and then it goes further than just that day at the show. Otherwise, when you're competing, you just put the trophy on the shelf and then on to the next day, right? And so it grew into this community, and I'm super competitive. Let's face it, like I'm a very competitive person. So as soon as there were other coaches started popping up and having teams, then I really started to thrive. It was like, oh,
yeah, you want to be the best version of yourself, the best coach.
Nobody's going to beat me at what I do. And I think that first year when Men's Physique started, to win the overalls, these swords in the background, those are overall titles. So when you win, there's one guy that wins the overall of the show. And we won 48 consecutive shows, the overall, as Team Zero Gravity. And
did that create some haters?
It created a ton of haters.
Haters.
They're still there. They're still there.
Did that motivate you too, those haters?
Yeah, that motivates me. When people, motivates me is that anybody thinks they're going to out hustle what I do, right? And I know that there's a lot of talented people, and there's a lot of good coaches down in the industry that give me a run for my money, and I'm friends with these guys, I motivate them, they motivate me, and it's important to have those guys in the industry. Omar Ventura is another coach that I highly respect. Kim Odo is a mentor to me. Kim Odo is one of the original bodybuilding coaches. He's been around for a couple years longer than I have, and Kim's one of those guys that hasn't even tried to hold back. He's like, this is how you need to do this. This is where you're making mistakes. This is where you can do this. He helped me so much growing up in this industry, and he's supposed to be my rival, and we ended up having this bond that Kim's one of my greatest friends, and he's the person that if I'm ever stuck. Still to this day, I'll call him and say, hey, I'm going to send you a picture of somebody. I don't know. What do you think? Get a second opinion.
How important is that to have somebody that you can reach out to when you hit a wall? Somebody that you can, who cares about you and has their best interest at heart? How important is that to have in competition, but in just life in general?
Crucial. I bought the house across the street from my parents, Number one, so I can see them and help them, but number one, because if I have an issue over anything, I call my dad, right? Like I still call my father, like, Dad, what do you think I should do with this, right? I mean,
It's a blessing.
He's there. And in any aspect of life, you have people that have been there before you. If you think you know everything, then you're ignorant, right? Because I could say I know a lot about bodybuilding. I've been coaching for 25 years. I have over 200 pro cards. I've had over 100 Olympians. I have a decorated career. I learn from somebody every day, right? Something different that I did with somebody that their body responded. Now it's something that opened up a whole new avenue for me, or another person, right? So like Kim Oto's somebody I still confide in and I call all the time. I talk to Kim on the phone weekly, and we just talk, even brainstorming about business ideas, marketing, whatever it is, because I know where I'm good. I'm good as a coach, but I'm terrible with marketing. I'm terrible with social media, but I'm good at what I do, you know? And so I try to surround myself growing up with people who were good at the areas that I wasn't. It was the same thing, same concept when I was training at Bulldog. I hated training legs. So I found a training partner that loved training legs.
That's powerful right
Because
there.
I knew I wasn't gonna let him beat me. But if he's not there, I'm gonna go home early, right? So I purposely in advance set myself up to succeed by saying, hey Mark, I know you love training legs, you're one of those weird psychopaths that loves doing them. You know, so you wanna be my training partner? Yep, perfect. So now.
Yeah, and you were humble enough to even like just ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of peeps that are up and coming, and
They know it all. They don't need anybody.
yeah, and that's the part of that I always admired about you, is that you're, even though like you look at you and you could seem pretty intimidating. I remember when I first met you, you know, but you're just a heart of gold and you're so humble, and I think that's why you've been able to create this massive success in the industry. I have not gone somewhere where people don't say your name and they just say great things about you.
I appreciate it. You know, I've been 100% I've been blessed. You know, God has 100% blessed my life, and it hasn't. And I think this is where people get confused. They think when I say my life has been blessed, that my life has been easy. All right, it has not been easy. If anybody knows, I mean, even this year in January, I had a heart attack, massive heart attack, very close to losing my life. I've had TIAs, minor strokes. I had spinal meningitis, which is what killed my brother and nearly took my life at one point in my bodybuilding career. You know, it hasn't been easy. I've had bicep surgery, I've torn my tricep, torn my lat, torn my pec, 2 hernia surgeries, knee surgeries. I've been through it, you know, and then also in life, like I said, my life has not been the easiest.
Not to mention you've been burned by many people who have tried to take advantage of you in many ways.
I've had 20 partners that I didn't know I had through all the years of doing this industry, you know. At the end of the day, though, you know, people, when you paint this picture and say, oh, it was all roses, I mean, it wasn't all easy. But at 100%, I know God had my back through the whole thing, because my life has been blessed. Through all of those situations, the fact that I'm landed on my feet and I'm still moving forward is a blessing, right? Like, never was there a spot where it was, you know, it never took me out of the game, right? So I think where a lot of people have this idea that things are going to be easy, or, oh, Ryan's so lucky. Like, well, you own your own gym, you're lucky. No, lucky? What do you mean lucky? I mean, I spent every dime I had. I had to borrow money from my father to help me start the gym. I was lucky in the fact that I had a good support system, you know.
Labor upon correct knowledge. When proper preparation meets opportunity. And you've been preparing for, since you were 13, 9.
Young age, I knew what I wanted
So someone who's that age and they're up and coming, to wrap this up, what advice would you give them? One that says, hey, Ryan, how can I be successful? And I know we could be here for another hour because you got some golden nuggets of wisdom, but what would be that key, let's just call it secret sauce?
I think what I kind of touched on earlier is not about what you do,
Okay.
and it's about how long you've done it. I see now in this generation, a lot of young people, they're jumping. They jump from job to job, which seems like the next best thing. This one pays $5 more an hour. This one pays $3 more an hour, and they're bouncing around. But they haven't stuck to the one thing, so they never really honed their skills to the point to where they can get great, right? So being consistent is the key, right? Just determination and consistency. Put your head down and keep doing what you do until you're great at doing it. And when you become great at doing it, then you find people that are greater than you are and continue to get great, right? Like in all aspects. Like I said, I'm not good at everything that I do, and I'll be the first to admit that. I'm terrible with marketing. I'm terrible, but I know what I am good at, and because of that, it sustained me through all the things that I'm not good at. But then I come talk to guys like you, like Edgar, all the time, and I'm always telling them, man, what else could I be doing? I need, because I know where Edgar's great. I know where you guys are great. I mean, you guys have successful businesses, and there's a lot of people that I surround myself with that I look up to in other aspects, right? And to what I do to them is great. Bodybuilding is great. To me, what you guys do is great, right? So I think it's just knowing what you're good at, and then just keep doing it and keep doing it and doing it. And when other people tell you, that it's not going to work, keep doing it until they ask you for a job someday.
Wow, that's powerful.
And our show, obviously, best version of me. What does that mean to you when you hear best version of me?
Oh man, the best version of me, I think everybody sitting here, because everybody I know here is a hardworking, successful person, we'll probably all have a little bit of OCD, right?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
I got some of that.
And so I'm 100% have OCD. That obsessiveness, right, is just keep pushing forward, right? But what it means to me is that it's a best version of me is a quest, but an unachievable destination.
Wow.
Right? So there's never a spot to where, and I think every successful person will agree. I've never run into another person who was super successful that said, I'm here, I arrived. Right?
You got the billionaire wanting to make the next billionaire.
Yeah, they never said, I'm done, I'm here. Right? Like, it wouldn't matter if I had 100 Olympians, I want another 100. And when I have 200, I'm going to want 3.
That's right.
Because it's a never-ending quest for perfection, which is not, perfection is not obtainable, right? So for me, just constantly being a better version is this, right? Having these conversations and trying to meet with people that you respect and trying to just break barriers every day, which should be a daily quest. And it is for me. Not some days are down days, where you just get tired. Yep. But at the end of the day, man, it's like it's never settling and it's never being comfortable. It's what's next.
Always reinventing yourself.
Always reinventing.
So I know you have people from Brazil, China, Mexico, all over the world. I've done my homework on you. I think just on social media alone, I would say you probably have a reach to over 50 million people. And that's probably on the low end. Why? Because you have some competitors that they're your mentor, they tag you on their Instagram, and it's Team Zero Gravity, and I see them, wow, 2.1 million followers. He's like a celebrity in Brazil. But for the people that don't know you, that just want to get started, are they able to have you be their coach online? I know you have hundreds and hundreds of emails that you respond to, your assistants respond to, you're on it. How do they get a hold of you? How do they reach you?
Oh man, I'm always open up to working with anybody at any level. And the best way is my Instagram is, Team Zero Gravity. You send me an email at teamzerogravityfitness@gmail.com. You go on my website, teamzerogravityfitness.net. Reach out. I run all of it by myself, so every email is answered by me.
Oh wow!
And
it's a lot of emails.
Every phone call is answered by me. So all my information's out there. I do work with all levels, not just guys, girls, athletes of all kind, and not just athletes. People that want a big, just transformation clients are some of my favorites actually. Sometimes I get tired of the competition. I just like working with people who just want to be the best version of themselves, right?
That's right.
So that's that's what I love doing. So if you're interested and you want to do it, send me a message.
Last question, because I know we can be here for forever. And I know we're barely even scratching the surface, right? We got to do this interview again. But there's going to be our audience who are going to be watching this. They're going to get inspired. They're going to want to have the journey to be the coach, to open up their fitness gym, their business. What do you say to those people?
Start small, right? Start small. Start with something that is, my motto was always start with something that you can run by yourself, right? Like, don't overextend yourself to a spot where you are dependent on other people or other things for your success. I started off, my first gym was in 1,275 square feet, right? I knew that I could pay my rent there if I had no other trainers working for me or anything else. I started there, and as the need and the demand went up, I increased every time. So I always moved up to a bigger location, the next location, the next location, add more equipment. But I think a lot of people, they have the big dreams, but they don't take the first steps because it seems so overwhelming. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. What I've realized through all the years, it's not the equipment, it's not the size of the gym, it's who you are, right? And I realized that I could go wherever I want to go, and people, because they believe in me, are going to follow.
Yeah, it's who you are.
Right? So don't invest as much time thinking about having to have the perfect gym or is this going to be big enough. Worry about just being great at the skill you're trying to teach, right? Learn it, be confident in what you're going to teach these people, and you can get people in the greatest shape of their life out of your garage.
Yeah, good point.
You could do it out of the garage. As long as those people have faith in what the knowledge you're giving them, they're going to follow.
Yeah, you don't got to be great to start. You just got to start.
You just got to start
to be great.
Start small, and as you grow, expand and keep learning and always trying to be the best version. That's it.
You heard it, guys. We want to thank Ryan Bentson for being on our show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow our channel, and be inspired to be the best version of you.
Football has been a huge connection for us. Both went to UCLA, both played in the NFL. We both have Super Bowls. We both played for the Raiders. Your personality is big, your body is big, your energy is big. Own that. It's like whatever you tell yourself is what you're gonna believe. Whatever you hear, just like that whiteboard that had all that stuff on there, accountability, discipline, consistency, never give up, right? It's what you feed yourself, like what you eat, is what you're gonna become. And now starting at defensive end from Houston, Texas, Bruce Davis, but there was never a time where I was like, I don't deserve to be here, or I shouldn't be, or I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, right, I knew I was supposed to be exactly where I was. I was the guy that in practice, I was gonna go hard, like that was my game. You're in control of your mind. You may not be in control of the circumstance, the situation, the structure, but you're in control of your mind. You fall down, get up. Shouldn't be in your DNA, shouldn't be in your vocabulary. Never, ever give up.